Hi, Armoured Pants here, and I have another video for you. This is the French line, the Tier 10, the Foch 155 tank destroyer, and as always you have a complete guide. If you want to contact me, best to do it on the Facebook page, which is at WOTB a gameplay, and I usually try to answer there fairly quickly if you want to ask me a question or ask me to do a particular video. Now, we'll have a look at the tech spec. As always, we'll use blitzhanger.com. Now, the Foch is a really tough competitor. It's a good tank destroyer. It holds its own in Tier 10, maybe one of the best TDs up there. It is expensive, of course, as you can see. Has a 155mm gun, as you would expect. It's big alpha dog, giving you big alpha rolls, as you can see there. This tank is kind of unusual in many ways. It is preceded by the Tier 9 Foch, quite similar to that in gameplay. It's unusual though, and it has a lot of limitations, but it also then has some great variation in its gameplay. So it's an interesting tank to play, interesting tank destroyer. Now we can see it has a slow reload, 13.5 seconds, so that's not great. There's low pen numbers too. You only got 280 on AP. That goes up to 37mm on heat rounds, which is pretty good. So you need to pack a few Pramo rounds because you're up against big armoured guys in Tier 10. And you got 90mm of pen on the HE, so load up on that. When I say the AP pen is low, I mean compared to other TDs. Obviously compared to mediums and lights it's not low, but compared for TDs, and that's what we're comparing it to, right? It also has very low muzzle velocity. It's only 826 meters per second. That's extremely low. And even when you use supercharge, it's only 1744. Therefore, because it has slow shells, deflection shooting is a skill you will need for this tank if you want to shoot from long distance. So therefore, if you're not familiar with that or forgotten what it is, refresh on that. And I would suggest that you look at the TD guide we have here where it's all explained. It's very limited gun depression as well, only 5 degrees. Very limited elevation, and it has a very limited aiming arc. It's only 5 degrees plus minus each way. It's very low, but it has a great power to weight ratio, great traverse too. So if we look at power to weight ratio here, the explanation, what does that mean? Well, basically it means it's pretty fast, and it's fast from a standstill, which is very important, right? So from a stop start, this tank moves fast. Now here's one of its great strengths. It's that frontal armour. You can see also you can side scrape those. Relative armour numbers on the side are pretty big, as you can see, and the front armour is almost trollish. I mean, it's very difficult to pen front on, very difficult to pen indeed. And actually the gameplay we're going to look at, you can see that the tank is used as a front line kind of battering ram, because once you've got that frontal armour facing the enemy, the tank is it's pretty strong, pretty aggressive, and can do a lot of damage on the enemy. Now on the sides and back, of course, it is vulnerable. It has very little armor on the sides and back. If you're going down or uphill, you can see that you can be penned really easy from on top. Why is that important? Well, when you're in tank destroyer, you're often going to elevated positions to assume sniping positions. And therefore, if you're going up or down a hill, you're quite vulnerable. So that's why it's important. So don't go up and down a hill in this unless you're quite sure where the enemy is and where the big guns are, particularly those big 10 monster alpha guns. Now, here we're looking at that limited gun elevation, and we're looking at the limited gun depression. Also the limited aiming arc, only 5 degrees plus minus, so it's very, very tight aiming arc. But of course it does have very fast traverse speed, which makes up for that. Here we are looking at Tier 9, almost impossible to pen. Tier 10, we look, it's a bit more vulnerable at Tier 10, but nonetheless still pretty good front on. Now you have 3 options with this tank. You can play the traditional TD, sniping from the back. You can go with the heavies, get your armor front on to the enemy, or because it's so fast, you can go with the meds. You have the speed to keep up with your meds, so you can flank with them. I'll go to support them. So there's 3 options. What I recommend for you is at the start, if you're when you're getting familiar with the tank, adopt those traditional TD positions. Sit at the back, farm some damage. When you get more comfortable with the tank, when you get more comfortable with its gameplay, of course, then you can move up with the heavies or the light tanks. We are going with Tim from ISR Clan. BMW 540 V8 is his in-game name. Bit of a petrol head is our Tim, loves his cars and his bikes, hence his name. Good bloke, known him since more or less when I started playing Blitz. Top bloke, and very, very good player as well. I've seen him blossom into an excellent player, and really, you know, this is a great game from him. Now you'll see here what Tim's doing is, you know, he decides to push on in this tank, as we said you can do. So not only is he going to support his heavy, he's actually using his speed. He's going to push on, he's going to be aggressive in this tank, because when you have that armor out in front, you really can do that in this tank. Now I'm going to slow it down here so you can look at that big alpha roll on the grill. That's what we're talking about. That's why you need your HE loaded up on this tank, because this is a problem we've all been experiencing, I think, recently on Blitz. Some bit of ping is terrible, particularly since the last update. See there, big bounce there off that frontal armor, and you will get bounces all day in this. If you get front on, and then when you fire, when you're moving back, if you angle up, you will get bounces, because we saw the relative armor numbers when we looked at the armor profile and the tech spec. Those relative armor numbers are really good. See here up close, the muzzle velocity is not an issue. Rolling back, and there we go, another bounce off that armor. He's creating lots of relative armor numbers, high relative armor numbers, plus he put the gun mantlet in there, nice bounce. And you can see that now he's gotten off some lovely shots, and he still hasn't taken any damage. And up close and personal, the muzzle velocity is not a problem, and he just pens no problem a normal AP round into the vulnerable lower plate on this E100. Now there's 5 kills in this game, so he gets his Radley Walters medal. He also gets a mastery badge. Now he does less than 4k in damage, which in a tier 9 TD is not huge, right? I mean, it's really decent, but it's not huge. So why did he get the mastery badge? Well, he got the mastery badge because you'll see when the scores come in, he got over 1.5k of base XP, which is huge. And that's what delivers the mastery badge. As we always say on channel, mastery badges are delivered by XP, not necessarily by damage or number of kills. They all contribute to it, but basically all your activities contribute. Him pushing on, being aggressive in this tank, getting the spots, getting the kills, getting the bounces, are all activities that you get XP for, hence him getting the 1.5k that you're going to see here. Now Tim is obviously a very good player. He's obviously now very comfortable with this tank, so he's being aggressive in his tank. He's using one of its major strengths, which is its speed, to get into positions where he can push onto the enemy, get bounces, be aggressive, get in their face, and really do some damage. Now, as we said, this tank destroyer has low muzzle velocity, but if you use your speed and get up close and personal with the enemy, then the lack of muzzle velocity isn't such an issue. Really becomes an issue when you're firing from distance. So if you're adopting traditional TD spots where you're sniping, trying to do damage from range, then it becomes an issue, and that's when you need the deflection shooting. But if you're pushing on, being aggressive in this tank, then you can really do some damage and not worry so much about deflection shooting. Deflection shooting, if you are not aware of what we're talking about, it's basically a technique that was developed by World War I pilots, where during dogfights, where you actually fire in front of the target and the target then flies, or in the case of tanks, moves into the bullets, or in this case the shell. So you actually have to judge where your target will be and then fire in front of it. If you're up close and personal, you don't have to do that, but if you are firing over distance and the target is moving, then you have to, and we have covered that in the Tank Destroyer guide on channel, so have a look if you want to get a reminder of that. Now there we go, Tim, BMW 540 V8, excellent game from him, mastery badge, over 1.5k of XP, massive XP there, almost 4k damage, 5 kills, Radley Walters medal, and he played this tank to perfection, playing to its strengths. He also got Top Gun there, Reaper, you know, all those medals contribute towards the XP as well. A lot of damage blocked as well, so great game from Tim, and really playing to this tank strength, using those big alpha rolls, using that speed, using that frontal armor to great effect. So let's have a recap. This is a solid Tank Destroyer, holds its own in tier 10 as you saw in that game. tough competitor, and that troll armour on the front is really good. You can just get right in the face of the enemy and be confident that that frontal armour will bounce. Good gun, 155mm gun, well, big alpha rolls, but 13.5 second reload is slow compared to its compatriot TDs in tier 10, but it is mobile and agile and has that amazing traverse speed that driven by that brilliant power to weight ratio. 90mm of pen in the HE, give you almost up to 1000 alpha rolls, as you saw on the grill there, so make sure you have some HE rounds loaded up. Low muzzle velocity as we discussed, so therefore use supercharge, because even with supercharge it's still low. It's below 1100 meters per second, which is very low for tier 10. As we discussed, there's 3 tactical options available for this tank, because the tank is so versatile. So you can move with your heavies, or you can push with your meds, or you can just sit back and snipe traditional tank destroyer role. But of course, if you want to use that speed and support your heavies or mediums, you can do so. But as we said, please do so only when you're more comfortable with the tank. There's no point doing that at the start. Get comfortable with the handling, with the gun handling in particular, and then you can use those tactics. And decision making, of course, is always impossible. The music was Ravel's Bolero. You can check it out on YouTube if you want to enjoy it at full sound. So cheers, Mush, thanks for watching, and all remains for me to say is thank you, ISR BMW 540 V8, and pants off.